Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the famous Joe's Pub here in New York City. Blessing the band stage for two unprecedented nights here at Joe's Pub is ukulele sensation Jake Shimabukuro. Now, Jake hails from Hawaii, and for the last 3 decades, this gentleman has really shook the world up by how he revisions both contemporary and classical music, as well as how he reshapes people's vision of the ukulele. Tonight he's performing brand new music from his new album, The Greatest Day, which is available on his website as well as Amazon.com and iTunes. We had a chance to sit down and break bread to talk about his origins growing up in Hawaii, as well as his exposure and the history of the ukulele, and also talk about how he revisions classic and rock songs for the ukulele. It's an honor to just be sitting down with you. I have admired your music for over a decade. Wow. And I've just, of the 640 something television segments I've produced, you're the first ukulele musician.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm honored. Thank you.
This album, The Greatest Day, is a combination of a lot of original songs, and you have some classics that you revisioned on here. And I read something very interesting about The Greatest Day, the title track. You happened to land in Nashville and couldn't go to sleep, and you wrote this song.
Yeah, it was the night before we went into the studio because the whole album was recorded in Nashville. So I flew in from Honolulu, and my manager lives there, so he picked me up and we went to his place, and I was just downstairs. I just could not fall asleep, you know. So I took out my ukulele and you know just started kind of playing a little bit, messing around, and then yeah, and then I kind of wrote that piece and the next day, met up with the guys in the studio, and I played it for them. And said, "Hey, what do you guys think of this?" And they all came up with great parts, and we laid it down that day.
Now, I understand that you have a very, very special guest on this recording. In fact, you intended to only have him play on one track, but he ended up becoming on three tracks.
Yeah, Jerry Douglas, you know, is one of the greatest. I mean, he is the greatest dobro player of all time. I mean, no one has ever played the instrument the way that he does. Um, but I've always been a huge fan, and I you know, years ago, I was fortunate enough to tour with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, and went out on the road with them, and Bela and a lot of the guys, Future Man, Jeff Coffin, and Victor Wooten. You know, they introduced me to a lot of their circle of friends. You know, so I got to meet some amazing musicians, people like Edgar Meyer and you know Chris Thile and of course Jerry Douglas. So yeah, so to be able to record with him or just to even meet him, you know, was a big deal for me because he was one of my biggest inspirations. So he lives in Nashville, and while we were recording the record, you know, he said, "Oh yeah, man, you know, if I'm in town, I'd love to come down and you know maybe play some." So we're like, "Man, that'd be awesome." So he came down one day, and we sat down and we started jamming, and we played Eleanor Rigby, and he slayed it. It was so great. And after that, you know, we were done recording, and of course, we were all just like, "Oh my goodness, it's Jerry Douglas, right?" So, but then he looked at me. He's like, "Oh man, that was fun." He's like, "You guys want to play? You want me on anything else?" And I was like, "Really?" So then we recorded a Hendrix tune. We recorded "If Six Was Nine," and he slayed it again. And then yeah, he had time to just hang out a little bit more. So then we recorded one of my originals, a song called "Go for Broke," which was actually a tribute, you know, to the veterans.
You read my mind. There's a very interesting backstory about that song, and you being from Hawaii, the Japanese Hawaiian servicemen who served our country were really the crux of that song.
Yeah, just growing up in Hawaii, learning about you know, the Japanese Nisei veterans who made up the original 100th Battalion, 442nd, and the MIS. They were my heroes, you know, because I realized, you know, being an Asian American living in this country today, you know, I have a much better life because of the sacrifices that they made. So this was yeah, just a tribute to them, um, and there was a movie that was recently made called "Go for Broke," that was kind of an origin story of you know of the 100th Battalion, 442nd. So they had asked me if I could you know write some music for the film, and so the song "Go for Broke" became the theme song for the film.
Now, what's interesting about this recording is that this is the second project that you recorded in Nashville because your last album was the Nashville Sessions.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about coming into Nashville? Because I did some time in Memphis and Nashville,
Oh, yeah.
and Nashville has a very different aura than most music cities here in the United States.
Yeah, it's truly inspiring. You know, there's so many great artists, musicians of any genre. You know, it's not just country music, and but you have some of the top jazz players, the top you know obviously bluegrass and country players, but also rock guitar players. You know, you have just I mean pop music. I mean just everything, and just the creation of the music. You know, the writing, the all of the writers are there, you know, and they're constantly turning out all this great music, you know, that you hear on the radio all the time, and And so for me, I wanted to go to Nashville to record that record because I wanted to compose some original music, and I thought being in Nashville would just inspire me, you know, to be creative and to get in that mode. Because when I first started out, I did a lot of cover songs. In fact, that's kind of how I got started. Was there was a video of me covering George Harrison's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" that went viral on YouTube, and that's what prompted, you know, this touring career for me. So I've always I've always did a lot of arrangements of covers for the ukulele, but this was the first time that I did, you know, an album that just consisted of all original music. So it was fun. I mean, I've written songs here, you know, here and there in the past, but never just, you know, made that my priority and my focus. You know, so it was a great project for me. I learned a lot through it, and it just, you know, it also, I don't know, just kind of made me a little bit more comfortable, you know, with writing and not being afraid to just try to create something from nothing. And well, I shouldn't say from nothing, because, you know, everything that you play and everything that you write, you know, is basically you're inspired from something you've heard in the past, right? So, I mean, it's almost impossible now to create something that has not been influenced by anything other than yourself. So.
I've just been admiring how you've been able to revision Beatles songs and Jimi Hendrix and Leonard Cohen. I mean, there's nothing that's very taboo in your musical alchemy, and I think it's interesting how people are seeing the ukulele played by you revisioning the whole music gamut.
Oh, thank you. I love I mean, I just love music. You know, all those the names that you mentioned. I've just always been a huge fan. You know, growing up, and I love their music. I love one of the things that I enjoy I enjoy most about the ukulele is it's a very simple instrument, right? You have four strings and only two octaves. The range of the ukulele is only two octaves, so that's like if you sat at a piano and you find middle C. From middle C, you move to the right to the next C, and then you move to the next C above that, and right there, that's the entire range of the ukulele. So trying to arrange songs and make it interesting and make it beautiful and musical, you know, within that framework is it's challenging, you know. I mean, what you can look at it two ways. It's very easy because you have very limited notes to work with, but at the same time, it's very challenging, you know, to make it interesting and to express certain emotions, and so that's what I love. You know, I love finding little just these little gems within those two octaves, you know, that you can play together or play, you know, you can take the two same notes and play them together in 100 different ways, and they'll feel different, right? So you know, just kind of just finding those little subtle things that you can do to just to almost change, you know, the character of that instrument.
I was going to ask you because what were you thinking about when you did Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody? I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
you were all over the place, and I bet it took you a minute to write those parts out to play that.
Yeah, you know, that was a hefty one, you know, to work on, and the thing is, I think that when you're covering a song like that, or any song, you know, you can cover it to a point where you can make it recognizable, right? You know, and that's something most people can do. But like to me, I always like to try to find um, ways to capture, you know, the essence of the song. So when I'm playing it, I in my you know, I don't know how it what it's the what it's like for the audience, but for me, as I'm playing it, like I'm feeling the music that I remember hearing and how I heard it and how it impacted me. You know, that's how I try to perform it. You know, when I or that's how I try to execute it while I'm doing a concert or performing the song. You know, so visually and just inside of my head and body, when I'm playing something like that, like I'm hearing Freddie Mercury scream into the microphone, and I'm getting the humor too, you know, the little from the videos that I watch, like from their music video, and just the just kind of the comedy of it, but then also the sincerity, and then the seriousness of it, but then and then also when it hits hard, you know, it's like a real rocking piece, you know, like trying to just navigate, you know, those waters, right? Is always a challenge, and I tell people that it's the same thing, like, you know, it's like you have to be a chameleon, or again, like an actor, right? You have to it's only one song, but through that one song you have so many emotions. I mean, dynamically, it's amazing, you know, that piece to me, and it tells a whole story, and I mean, a lot of times when I cover a song like that too, um you know, I do sing the lyrics in my head, you know, so I am singing it in my head as I'm playing it, and I think that helps a lot, you know, because it reminds me of, you know, where the spotlight should be, you know, where the spotlight is focused on, you know, and it's the melody, right? And when Freddie Mercury's not singing, then where does that spotlight go, right? And so the way I like to arrange music is when I think of a song, you know, it doesn't matter what genre it is or the difficulty is of it. I always try to imagine. What the song would sound like if I were just to hum it from beginning to end, you know, and not just hum the vocals, but even when the vocals stop, what line would I hum through that space, right? To still make it feel, maybe it's a little guitar riff, or maybe it's a little piano line or something, or maybe it's just a string line, right? But there's always something from the beginning to the end of the piece. There's a common thread that takes you all the way through it. And once you find that common thread, and once you find that whole thread, right, that single line melody from beginning to end, then you learn that on the ukulele, you know, which is a lot simpler, because you're not even thinking harmony yet. I'm not even thinking about chords yet. I'm just thinking that one melodic line that takes me from here to the end of the song. And then once I get that down, then I fill in the other stuff. Then it's like, okay, well, all right, where are the peaks of the song? And dynamically, this is where I want it to be the strongest and hardest hitting, right? So when I was arranging Bohemian Rhapsody, for me, it's the part where, you know, the headbanging part. So to me, like, that needed to be, that's the explosion, and that's where the song, everyone's going to be expecting that, right? So I had to think, okay, for that section, how can I arrange that part so that I can get the biggest sound out of my instrument? So what I did was I had to make sure that part was in the key of C, because in the key of C, my lowest note is the third string, which is the open C. So I can have that open C to really give it that strong, you know, ja da 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 ja da 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 da, you know, give me the low notes there. So now once I got that, then I work around there, and then everything needs to be transposed accordingly. So by the time once I know that's my focus, then I work backwards and I get back to the beginning. Then my opening chord becomes the G6. So because I think the original was in D, but yeah, so I arranged it in G, so that when I get to that part, I can be in the key of C. Open your eyes.
it's interesting. We're talking about some of your favorite jazz records. I did a very in-depth analysis of your whole musical background, and two of these records that I found very interesting that are your favorites. They're all in the rock scope, but they're diametrically in two very different areas. The first one is Abbey Road by the Beatles.
Yeah, well, I've just been a huge, Beatles fan growing up. I love their music. Abbey Road for me though was very special because there was just something about that whole B-side, the whole B-side of that record that really spoke to me. I mean, when I sit down and listen to that from beginning to end, I feel like I just watched the whole movie, or just it just takes me on this incredible journey, and all the melodic ideas in there, and just kind of the sounds that they were getting, and all these like weird, cool things. I just love it, man. I could listen to that over and over and over and never get tired of it. And there's just something about the vibe of that record too. It was just some of the most incredible guitar sounds, and just some of the bass ideas. I mean, it's just the writing. They're just geniuses. I mean, So I mean, for me, that was always one that spoke to me, at a very young age.
The second record is Grace by Jeff Buckley.
Oh,
Now, Jeff lived a very short life, but that record really kind of put him in an iconic mode after he left us.
Yeah, that was that's the famous one with, of course, Hallelujah on there, but my favorite track from that album, of course, Hallelujah is amazing, but Mojo Pin.
Ooh.
Mojo Pin, man, that to me, I mean, along with Hallelujah, of course, but Mojo Pin is just, that was a snapshot in time. I mean, that they captured absolute studio magic that day in the studio, and that's, I think, when I listen to that, I mean, that's what we all strive for when we're in the studio. We hope that we can get that take, and gosh, I can't tell you, man, that one makes me feel all kinds of emotions, and his voice, the way he plays the guitar, just the way they weave in and out of those tempos, and the dynamics, and just the color, and the breathiness to the aggressiveness, and it's just that's one of my all-time favorite tracks.
Jake, you had the honor and privilege of working with the great Alan Parsons for your second solo record, right?
No, it wasn't the this. I think it was it was a little bit further down the line for me. Yeah, but that was one moment that one experience, man. I'll just never forget it. The way it started was he came to one of my shows, in California, and I got to meet him after sound check, and he asked me if I had dinner yet. So I said, "Oh no." So he's like, "Oh, come, let's go grab some dinner." So we went and had some sushi, and he asked me if I was working on a project. So I said, "Oh, actually, I was just going to I was just thinking about recording a new album," and he's just said, "Oh man, that's great. Well, I'd love to work with you if you need help with anything." And I was like, "Wait, what? Really?" So I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh yeah." So that's how that project came about. So I said, "You would really produce my next record?" And he said, "Oh yeah." So I was like, "Are there cameras? What's going on?" But Yeah, and so we got to work together, and man, it was incredible. I mean, he's just the real deal. You know, he's so musical. He's got incredible ears.
Yeah.
His ideas and um, and he's just got a great knack for like. Because I remember when I was thinking about certain songs, you know, I would write something and play it for him, and he would be like, you know, who'd be great on that. Um, and he'd be like, do you know Simon Phillips, the drummer? I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, yeah, I do know Simon. I mean, you know, not personally, but he's like, yeah, I think Simon would be great on that song. Would you want to play with him? I was like, yeah, definitely. And he would like call him up and be like, hey Simon, you know, are you available next week? You know, I'm working with this musician now, and you know, would love for you to come in and lay down some drums. And you know, and a few days later, Simon Phillips shows up. You know, so I mean, it was really great. Kip Winger, he brought Kip Winger in to do some of the arrangements. You know, some of the orchestration, because he's an incredible orchestral arranger. A lot of people don't know that about him, but yeah, I mean, he is just amazing too. I mean, he's another one of my heroes. You know, I didn't realize just his knowledge of music is deep, really, really deep, and he's into all this like contemporary classical stuff and writes some of the most gorgeous music, man. So I'm a huge fan. So being able to work with him on that too was really incredible.
Yeah!
understand that when you were in your musical journey, you decided to get rid of the thumb pick and decide to play and learn all of your music by hand. Now that's got to be really, one, you got to revision how you're playing the instrument that you learned how to play, but then now you've got to redo your style.
Yeah, it was, I was really into Al Di Meola and all of that as a kid, and so I love that sound of, when you have with the pick, and then you palm mute the strings, and you get that really, that staccato thing, and then with the pick, you can really do that tremolo thing and get a lot of speed. So I used to love doing that, but I remember hearing Jeff Beck play, and I just loved all the different colors that he could get, all the different sounds that he got on the guitar, and every time I heard him play something, I knew right off the bat that was Jeff Beck. I mean, without a doubt. There's just, you hear him play one note and you're like, that's Jeff. So I realized, like, what is it about the way that he plays? Like, I've never really been able to hear anyone emulate his sound, or I've heard people come close, but there's just something about him. And someone told me, well, because he plays with his fingers, and everyone's fingers are different, right? But if you play with a pick, people can get that same pick, and they're already that much closer to your tone. So I thought about it. I was like, wow, that's so true. And I remember growing up listening to a lot of my favorite ukulele players, and I could always tell who that was, because of they're using their fingers, and people just had a certain sound, like, didn't matter which instrument they picked up. So that's when I thought, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of my thumb pick and just go back to playing fingers, which is how I started out playing. And when I did that, it opened up a whole new just a whole new can of worms for me, because just because I wasn't so dependent on the pick, and then my focus wasn't on just trying to play everything as fast as I could, right? It became more about, like, wow, all the different timbres and colors, and how you touch the string, how you pluck the string, which finger you use, which part of the finger you use. They all evoke different sounds and emotions, and to me it makes the music more interesting. It makes it more musical, more emotional, and there's just more character, I think, to what you're playing.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the famous Joe's Pub here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the talented Jake Shimabukuro for his time. Make sure you buy Jake's brand new CD, The Greatest Day, which is now available on his website, jakeshimabukuro.com, as well as Amazon and iTunes. Also, I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Joe's Pub for their warm hospitality. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave comments on my videos here on YouTube, as well as Vimeo. Also, please visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.